Hello, this is your host, Val, with the VK Career Conversation. The reason I decided to do this is that we all come from a place of insecurity when we're trying to figure out or just not knowing where we want to go with our career. What do I want to do? What's my next move with my career? Why am I feeling stuck here with what I'm doing? I remember when I started off in my career, I had no idea what I was doing, what I wanted to do. I want everyone to feel comfortable coming on. We will have professionals talking to you, myself, and others. We'll be consistent. We will feed your soul. We want you to ask questions. But I just think it's a platform that will allow you to really feel comfortable gaining information so that you can move forward in your career. You're listening to VK Career Conversations with Val. Be sure to tune in the first Monday of every month at 8 a.m.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. You sometimes see my face. Miss Carter wasn't able to make it in for today's VK Career Conversation. So Abigail is coming from behind the camera to in front of the camera today to fill in and as host with Mrs. Day Smith and Dr. Marianne Pinkston. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. So I am Dai Smith, owner and founder of Simplicity by Day. I help businesses with their operational efficiency to be more productive and profitable and purposeful in their business. I am a systems nerd, but I'm also a modern mompreneur and learning how to navigate the roles of raising a family and building a business simultaneously, which is a lot of fun. So that's for me.
Yay, I love that. And what about you, Dr. Pinkston?
Day's got a great podcast. You guys check that out. It's
Thank you.
So I am Dr. Marianne Pinkston, and I am a family physician and integrative physician in San Antonio, Texas. I have been doing that for over almost 25 years now, and love what I do. I have a podcast, so I love to educate and give good information. I've got a lot of great hosts that are nationally renowned. And so would love everybody to tune in and check it out at drpbetterlife.com. But have enjoyed being on here with everybody, with Val, with Day, and Abigail. So welcome in. Glad to see everybody.
Yes. This is going to be a good conversation. Today, we are going to talk about, should you walk away? Is it time to, maybe see something else in terms of maybe career or relationships, or maybe you're just in a place in life and you feel like it's time to move on to maybe something different. So what do you guys think about that topic?
It's tough because I feel like you always, no matter what it is, have a little bit of doubt with your decision. Like, is this right? Who am I affecting? So it's a great topic because I feel like if we don't have good counsel or good like a wisdom or discernment, it can be a really tough choice to know when to move, and so much doubt. And what I would say is, what I've learned is that you really just have to make the best decision with the information you have and trust it and move forward. Don't give yourself, don't put guilt into it. Just keep moving. So that's what I would say about that. But I love the topic.
It's a great topic. It's a great topic because I think there are many times we butt up against this wall. There are a lot of decisions that we make on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, yearly basis that we've got to make some critical decisions in our life. But when it comes to walking away, that's a big one. Career, relationships. I mean, these are game changers, life changers. These are things that are matters of the heart usually. And matters that are so critical that it could make or break something that you're trying to really climb and accomplish, or, it really takes you down a totally different road. So I think that makes it different in that it not just harder, not more difficult decision, but more frightening because it could have huge implications. I think this is something that when we hit this type of a decision, it's a true test. It's a true test of character. It's a true test of our, gumption and strength, and even sometimes our religion. So, we have really we this is a great topic, and I'm glad we're going to talk about this. And I bet there's a few people out there who are looking at this in the face and wondering where to go and what to do.
Yeah.
So glad to hit it.
Yeah, there's like, and I like that you brought up like religion too, or just whatever values. Like sometimes it's time to walk away because something doesn't align with your values, maybe even if it's not anything necessarily unethical, maybe it's just something that doesn't meet your standards. I think anytime you feel like stifled and you can't maybe grow in your career, grow in your skills, or you can't grow as an individual either. If you feel like maybe you can't be yourself, or because we all you put on a different coat at work, you know what I'm saying, obviously. But I think if you really can't be, if you have to like pretend or be something that you're not at your place of work, that's also a good time to walk away. Has there ever been a time with you guys where you really you were struggling with a decision? Because a lot of thought has to go into that decision, especially if it's something that is, paying your bills, putting food on the table, that has to be something that you consider. So has there ever been a time when you had to choose between something that felt right, but something that made more sense to the outside world?
Yeah, there's always, and I think when it comes to this type of topic and decision that people make, I think we are absolutely in that moment up against something deeper. There's something deeper in your soul. There's something deeper in and like you said, values and what you're aligning with. There's always something moving there to push you in a different direction. Something that you almost can't deny. In fact, there's a lot of things that we'll kind of go along with and allow to happen, or say, well, that's not a big deal, and on principle maybe it's important, but this is something I need to let go. When you get into something where you're not aligning correctly with it, and it's stirring in your gut and in your soul, with you, and you're forced to make a decision. It's a really scary thing. And yes, we've all had moments like that in relationships and jobs, career moves, family moves, making critical decisions like that. It's a really scary thing, I think, to fall against.
Yeah. And what about you, Dave?
I think that we are always looking for expansion. Like that's just kind of how we're always looking to grow. And so sometimes when we have to make decisions, it's because our spirit is leaning towards something that feels like the truth, right? Like I feel like that is something that we don't really talk about a lot. Your spirit is moving towards something that's the truth, but your reality may not be supportive of that. And I'm glad you mentioned standards, because that's a lot of times whenever you grow as a person, your standards change. So maybe your relationship needs to change, your job needs to change, your habits need to change, whatever it is. And so it's just a sign of growth and a sign of you just expanding. And so when you look at it that way, you think you should, when you look at it that way, I feel like it helps you to not be so scared of the change, and helps you to like embrace it. Like, I'm not sure, but I know that I got to move this way. I got to do this scared. I got to just go for it. And so I think that helps, because that's just a part of life. You're going to have those moments where you got to move in despite knowing everything and despite being scared.
Comfortable.
That's very comfortable. Very positive spin on it. Very well said. So yeah, I agree with that completely.
Yeah, because I think, I'm a big believer in, this could be something, because I know the younger people who are like younger kind of just seem to be more like spontaneous and stuff like that. But I am a big believer in like trusting your gut, and leading or going where I'm led, basically. And so if something, I may think about something for a little bit, and almost always my gut proves to be right. Like even just recently, I thought about something. It's more in my personal life, but I thought about making a change that like just randomly came in my head. I'm like, I need to make this change, and then I kid you not, a week later, I received information that was like, now you have to make this change, and I'd already thought about going in that direction. And so if I feel like you can think about something but you'll know when it feels right, when something, there's going to be some sort of big push or something. I really do believe that, you know, your body knows things before you do. And maybe it's a sign from God, maybe it's intuition, maybe it's a little bit of both. But I do believe that, like, you feel something in your gut and you're like, no, this has to change. And I've talked about this before, I think, on VK Career Conversations. But when I started working for Miss Carter, I was a manager at a retail chain store, and I had just gotten promoted. I was making the best money I'd ever made, and I kept that position for 1 month, and I knew I needed to leave. Before I got the promotion, I was thinking about moving, but I just wasn't. I was like, let me see this through. Let me, like, you know, they were talking about getting me a promotion. I was like, I'd be silly to turn down this money, to turn down this opportunity. But after a month, I knew, and, you know, things fell into place. Someone happened to send me a radio and podcast internship. And I've always wanted to, like, do my own kind of media podcast thing. Someone sent it to me. They're like, I think you'd be good for this. And I applied and I got it. And yeah, within, you know, it all kind of worked itself out. And I do believe in trusting the process and letting things work themselves out. Because if you force something, that's usually when you feel like displaced because you weren't ready for that big change yet.
Yeah, that's true. We talked about that in the last show with following our gut, following our, you know,
Yeah.
to it. And I think you're right. I think we start to receive, if we're open to it, you know, we should be open to receive these messages. I do believe in God and the universe, and, you know, and the that opportunities are not, and happenings and meetings and things are not mistakes. I don't believe in accidents necessarily. And so I do think that we just have to be open to the signs that are coming our way. You know, and if we are, and like Dai said, you know, just to take that positive spin on it, that, you know, I'm going to be okay. I'm going, like we said in our last podcast, you know, everything's going to work out okay. You've just got to be open to the signs and just think of it in a more mature, open, you know, positive fashion, and follow your gut and your spirit. And I think you'll always land in the right direction. What if you don't? Turn around.
Yeah.
Go a different direction. It's
You
okay.
can figure something out. Yeah. Yeah.
Always.
Have you guys ever had to walk away from a situation? And, like, how did you manage that? How did you make that decision?
Frequently, yes.
Go ahead. I could
feed off you.
No, go ahead. I was trying to think of I feel like a lot of little things I've had to say, I'm not doing that anymore. But nothing major I can that comes to mind right now.
Okay, I have another question for you guys. How are you guys with change? Are you the type of person where you like to switch things up? You like to try new things? Or are you a person where, like, once you find that rhythm and that comfort, you want to sit in that as long as possible?
I am horrible with change. So
okay.
I can even walk into a room where my children moved something in my room, a picture frame or something, and moved it in my room. I can be like, okay, something's different. Nope, this is not me off entirely for a day until I figure it out and, you know, put it back. Or I'm terrible. And so even my ex-husband, God bless him, he always said, you know, when he knew we needed to change directions in our business or something, that he would introduce me to it a little bit, mention something that just kind of put it in the back of my mind. And then he would work me slowly, you know, into the fact that something needed to change. And then, you know, he said that worked so much better than walking in the room saying, yeah, this isn't working. We're going to do this from here on out. And it'd be like, you know, I don't do well with change. And I don't know why that is. But I've had to learn to be, you know, very malleable. You know, I've had to learn to bend and move and not let things throw me like that. And that's just a level of wisdom and maturity that just grows on you. That's something you have to acquire. I don't think if you are not developed that way, that you can just wake up one day and say, okay, well, I'm going to go with the flow, you know, if you're not built that way. So that just comes with wisdom and maturity. But yeah, I've had plenty of situations where I've had to make some different moves. And it's very unsettling. It can be very unsettling, but you listen to your gut. You have to listen to yourself. You know what's best for you. You always have to listen.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. What about you, Day? I feel like doing the organizational operations thing, you're the type of person, I'm just reading you based off of that. I feel like you're the type of person that you're like, no, I have my flow and I don't want it to change.
Yeah, so the funny thing is I am very impulsive when making decisions. So I'll change quickly, which annoys my husband. I'm like the opposite of you, Dr. Pinkston, but he is slow to change. I'm quick to change. And so especially if it's in my control, right? But
Yeah,
if it's in if someone else is forcing me to change,
right.
that's when I have a problem.
And that may be
Yeah.
the difference too, because I'm also very impulsive with a lot of things, but it's
Yeah.
my control. So
When I can control it, I'm good. But if someone else says do this, I'm like, wait a minute, why?
yeah, yeah,
That may be some resistance. You got to make it make sense to me. But I
absolutely.
feel like the more that I've grown and matured, I've been okay with if I am forced or I decide to change and I make the decision, I've like put it in my head that this is right and I go and I don't try not to dwell on what it used to be or if I made a mistake. It just helps me like force myself to move forward. And you also have to have humility because what if you do it and it's not the right decision? you
Hmm.
know, or it hurts people along the way. So a part of being able to accept change or move being, you also have to have humility because maybe you need to go back and, mend things or revisit or something. So you got to be able to do that too. I think that that makes you a more well-rounded person when it comes to moving and making decisions.
Right.
So and changing.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm the type of person, I like itch for change at some point. Like I'll get into a flow and like the logical side of me is like, okay, get into your flow, be comfortable, you want to work like a well-oiled machine, but then once things kind of sit too comfortably, I'm like, I need to mix it up. I need to switch something up somewhere in my life. I switch up my room, like my bedroom like twice a year because I'm like I need something new to come home to. But I do have a question for you guys. Us as professionals, how do you feel? Because there's this kind of like narrative that's being like pushed on like social media. Because I follow a bunch of like people who try to give career advice. I don't know what their qualifications are, but I listen to it, and they say, that you should like switch jobs every 2 years or 3 years. And so how do you feel? And I hear that. I'm like, okay, I can see the benefits of that when it comes to like making money, right? Because you can get a higher raise at another company. I understand that side of it. But I know I kind of judge people when they're like, oh yeah, I have a new job every 6 months. I only worked there a few months. So
Right.
what's your opinion on like people who job hop?
I want to mention something based on some what we were talking about kind of before you switch gears, but it falls into this.
Mm-hmm.
There
Hmm.
is an adrenaline rush. There's a dopamine rush that occurs whenever when you're in a mode where things are flowing and easy, and you're just in a routine. You're missing an adrenaline or a dopamine rush. This is why people get addicted to gambling or shopping or things
Mm-hmm.
like that. There's always a level of excitement that comes with that, and that rush gives you that rush of dopamine, which is a pleasure brain hormone. And that is probably why a lot of people now, you look at the younger generation being more spontaneous about that and making quick changes and making, kind of rash decisions and whatnot. And I think that is based on that dopamine rush and that adrenaline rush that occurs with that. And I think job switching and changing gears is just that. There's something new and adventurous and
Mm-hmm.
gives you a push and a rush. And I think that's what people are always going after. It's why we eat carbs. It's why we do what we do in many situations. But I agree with you, Abigail, that there's something very dangerous about that, because I think that we still have to show. Well, you look at my generation, it's very, very important to show stability. So if I look at your resume and you've been to 16 different places, you're not going to be in my scene here. You're not going to be a part of
Mm-hmm.
my group, because I don't want to train you, put all this time and money into you. My
Mm-hmm.
patients get to know you, and I work so hard, and then you're up and gone, and then I got to do it with somebody else. It's a waste of my time, a waste of my
Mm-hmm.
money. It disrupts my organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do not think that that is a stable, good person that I want in my group. Now, if I'm in advertising or if I'm in some other industry, maybe it's industry dependent. Maybe that's what
Yeah.
we're looking for in different industry, new faces. So in advertising and whatnot, you're always looking for a new face, a new way to do things, and a grabbing attention and all that. But that's a dopamine rush too. So, you know, when we scroll and we look at like Instagram, we're looking through things, and the scroll, that is an adrenaline rush too. And that's why they're always looking for something new and different to invite us in and pull us away and get us into that rush. So just a little psychology behind that, what I think it is.
So I will say in my career, so my career as a pharmaceutical in the pharmaceutical sales, I see it a lot. I see people jumping around from one company to the next for the pay, like you mentioned, Abigail. But I even see it internally. Like I see leaders, especially at a higher level, they'll be in a role like a director role for a year and a half, and they move to another role, and they move to another role. And from someone who reports to someone like that, because you mentioned, Dr. Pinkston, what it looks like from you hiring, but from someone who's leading, it feels the same way. It's like, okay, well, you know, you leave people in a state of like, okay, who's next? What's going on? Like, it doesn't feel good for the culture. So you got to think about that from both levels. If you are hiring, if you are trying to get hired, someone's going to be looking at you and saying, why is she moving around? But also, if you're at a higher level and you're leading people, we're also looking like, oh, she going again. Like, it just doesn't, I feel like there's value in putting roots down somewhere. And more importantly, if you're just moving just for pay, you're never going to be able to really get the knowledge that you need to be better at the next job. I feel like, sure, if you move because it's going to help you advance in your career, you're going to learn new skill set, I think that's okay, because it's going to make you more valuable. But moving just for money, same problem's going to be everywhere. Like, I mean, I've been at the same pharmaceutical company for 15, 16 years. And when I tell people that, they're like shocked. But I'm like, I've had no reason to move. I've always grown. I've always felt supported. They pay me well. I'm happy. You know, I don't, but it just depends on the person, because I've seen people bounce around just to go over there and see that the grass is not greener, and they're trying to come back over here, you know? So you got to keep that in mind.
You know, with the pharmaceuticals, I'm on the end where I'm in the doctor's office. You guys come to visit me.
Yes.
Just develop a relationship with somebody.
Good point. That's a good point.
And then boom, they're gone. And then we start over. And I'm like, that really does affect the sales of your product, because I'm like, you know, I get into a relationship and I learn about the product, and I'm getting, you know, I feel comfortable with it, and I'm working with them, and, you know, and then all of a sudden they move and go somewhere else. The samples are gone. The learning is gone. I'm like,
I know.
Something else.
That is like one of my things. I'm like, you guys don't understand the value of relationships, because really you're building relationships, whether it's your company or whatever. Like, there's something to be said about ingrained relationships. It takes you so much further than the money and the experience. Like, their relationship can open so many doors. So if you're a young adult looking at moving around a lot, just be mindful of those relationships that you could be hurting by moving around so much. So
Yeah. I actually thought about that the other day, because, you know, doing all the media stuff for Miss Carter and VK Career Conversations and the nonprofit L&V and the radio show Love and Victory show, you know, I have like a texting relationship with both of you guys, and with most of the people who we work with, you know, so much so that, like, I mean, I wouldn't say it's as far as like personal, but almost, you know what I mean? Like, to a point where, like, I feel like I can reach out to somebody. They know who I am. They already have my number in their phone. You know, when I call them and like ask them if they want to be on the show, they already know what's up. Like, you know, they already know what the deal is, what the time is. And we have that like system going, you know? So you know, it's that is extremely valuable. Yeah.
That is important. It is, when you see a familiar face come up from an organization that you have to work closely with, and you know, that drives a lot of stability, and it really makes it, you know, it makes the system move faster and better. And if you know, something were to change, you were to step aside. I mean, we always want what's best for you. We always want you to grow and develop and do what's best for you. But if you kind of disappear, it's gonna be like, well, who do I talk to now? Who do I reach out to? And things will slow and step away, and the reliability disappears. And it's, so, you know, all those things are important. But, you know, in the light of what we're talking about with the show, it's about, you know, trying to look at what what's important to you and developing you. And, you know, if you're looking to build your career and to, drive improvements in your life, whether it be relationships or jobs or things like that, you know, you got to think about the path that you're leaving behind you, who you're behind, who you're affecting, what the consequences are of that. It really isn't just about you. It's not
Right.
about you. And people, I think, lose sight of that often. And we are a very me society. And
Oh
so I
yeah.
try to be very cautious now about how we look at things from a corporate side. I think even I look at medicine right now, and I was talking with a patient yesterday about, you know, how corporate medicine is now. It's just it's dry, it's cold, it's money driven now. It's a cold organization, and it's it's not about listening to patients. It's not about helping people anymore. It's not about holding hands. It's not about looking somebody in the eye. It's not about taking care of things for people and doing the right thing anymore. It's not about that. And I
Yeah.
think not just in medicine, but in other corporate atmospheres, it's that way. And I think a lot of it is because of people who are trying to build and move forward in their world and not thinking about those relationships and the things that they're leaving behind. So a few thoughts there on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I also talked to somebody recently who was talking about like they're on like a board of directors for something, and he said someone had to leave, and he said, you know, that person thought that they were irreplaceable, and if you're irreplaceable, then you're not doing a good job. And that's something that really resonated with me because, you know, there is a sense of like pride. It feeds your ego to feel like, oh, nobody can do what I do. Like I do it best. But you also don't know where life is going to take you. And like you said, Dr. Pinkston, it's about the path you leave. And something from the second I started here with Love and Victory and all the things that we do was like establishing like systems in place. I don't want everything to live in my head. I want it to be, you know, if for whatever reason I have to leave or whatever happens or I can't do my job anymore, that somebody can pick up where I left off and have the chance to develop the skills that I've developed at the same time. I never would want to like leave being like, oh, well, they're going to fall because they don't have me. You know,
Right.
I think when you have that mentality too, that can be toxic.
Everybody is replaceable.
Yeah.
Everybody is replaceable. And it is, you want to be missed and you want to be wanted and you want to know that you're in the right place and that people rely on you and that you are doing a great thing and that they don't want to replace you. There's a big difference. But everybody is replaceable. And I think if you are in a job situation where you have that mindset, you are going to lose big time. You start to take advantage of the fact that you are where you are, and people pick up on that. They know that.
Yeah.
And there is an ego. There is an ego side of that rubs people the wrong way, or can rub your boss the wrong way for sure. And the humbleness that I'll think of my office manager. She was on with us at one point, Jennifer, my office manager. That is somebody who in a lot of ways is absolutely truly irreplaceable. But at that, God forbid, if something were to happen, she needed to move on or whatnot, we would find somebody to fill that spot. That nobody is truly irreplaceable. But what makes her, in my mind, irreplaceable is how humble she is, how motivated she is, how she cares about the system and the path and the culture that she leaves with her. And that's what makes her irreplaceable. It's not the fact that she's just so wonderful at her job. It's her demeanor. It's her soul that she leaves with us every day. And that's what's more important sometimes than just the job that you're doing. How you get things done, that's great, but that is replaceable. But to have somebody who is humble there and doesn't believe that, from an ego side is very, very important.
Oh yeah, character plays a big role in your value.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that you're doing something, putting systems in place, like you say, so someone can step in, similarly like how Miss Val has done, because you're able to step in here, even though you were behind the build of the structure of this show, but you're able to step in here. That's how you know it's a solid organization. But also just knowing that you have something that you're able to grow into and you've learned from, that again only to me only comes with time and experience. And when you think about, is it time to leave yet, think about what have you gained from this experience, and you have to spend time there, which is why bouncing around or leaving too soon can be detrimental to your own development as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, because as spontaneous as I can be, I'm also a big I always have like a backup plan. I'm always like, okay, well, if this doesn't work out, what am I gonna do? Because I do like to be spontaneous. I'm like, okay, well, if things go crazy, what's gonna happen in my absence or if I move on? And that's, in relationships and in career as well. Yeah, so I do think, like you said, character plays a big value in that too. Have you guys heard the term they say, I've seen it a lot online. They call it the personality hire. And so like the person, they'll usually do like a little skit of them walking into their job. They're like, when you're the personality hire, and they're kind of the person that is just like, brings the vibes, the energy. They might not necessarily do a great job, but they're that person that brings that like light, that energy. What's your opinion on that? Do you think that's a real thing? Yeah, what do you guys think about that as professionals?
Maybe I'm not sure. I know exactly. I don't think I've seen that, but I'm not really able to get on and kind of read the trends of. I'm starting to get old now. I'm falling behind. I don't know the latest superstars. I don't know the latest songs. I'm like, man, I'm becoming my grandma. But but it makes sense to me because I think it depends on the job. If you've got a good front office person who's got great personality, I mean, they can do their job. They can answer the phone. They can keep the books and the accounting, and they can do all those things. But sometimes there's just something about having somebody bubbly and wonderful up front, even if they can't count. Or say it's just there's something good about that. Not sure that's what you mean, but yeah. So, is anybody asking any questions? Or I know you're up front now. You can't really read and watch the social media and see what the questions are coming in today. But
we don't have any questions right now. We're sitting at a couple viewers, so we don't have any questions right now. But I definitely think that this conversation is really, really important, and I hope people can watch the playback of it or clips that we post from it, because I do think there's a lot of people who kind of they sit in this place of like, what should I do? They feel like they're stuck in a rock and a hard place, and they're like, okay, I can go this direction or I can stay here. And kind of like what we talked about with follow your gut. It's not always, it'll work out one way or the other. There's never a right or wrong answer. I think things will work out how they work out, and we always find a way to make things level out. And so I do think that this is a really important conversation when dealing with, changing a career or a relationship or whatever. Kind of like how I said earlier, that I'm the type of person, I like a lot of change. Kind of taking it to the relationship aspect of it, I call myself like a serial monogamous, because I go from one relationship to the next, and they're usually pretty like serious relationships, but I love the like honeymoon phase. You know what I'm saying? So
that's the adrenaline rush, and
true.
Spend a lot of time in society on adrenaline. We're built that way. I think the industry has built it. If you look at Google and Facebook and all of these social media outlets and whatnot, they have an entire department of just the science of making people scroll, right? And pulling in attention and learning how you shop, learning how you think, and constantly making offers that pull you in and spend and read. And so we are really a very adrenaline based society. And I wonder if sometimes that's part of our, of our read into a situation like we were talking about, people who job hop or whatnot. I think that may be a huge part into our read as, to how to make decisions for ourselves when somebody like maybe Val and I are from an older time where we have a more values based in staying in one place and building and growing. Not that y'all don't. I mean, Day was very clear, and that's something that's very important to her. But there really is a difference in the generational sides about making decisions like that. You guys are a lot more fearless. I think you're a lot more ready to make a big jump and not be so afraid of it. I think we come from a time where that just wasn't done. You really don't make big changes like that. And if you do, we've been taught there's going to be some huge consequence of something you're leaving behind. You guys are fearless. It's like, I'm going to think I wake up today. I think I'm going to change jobs. Let's go. And I think there's a part of that that's very wonderful. I think it's good to be able to be that brave and not that afraid, of things. So it's, you got to look at it from all different perspectives.
Yeah, I remember and sorry if this background noise, I remember when I was studying generational differences in one of my past roles, and how at the time the alpha gen wasn't talked about, which is like my kids, right? It was more of the baby boomers to the millennials and Gen Y or Gen Z. And they talked about the reason why Gen Xers, which is like 45 to 55, that age group, are so they are more stable. It's because that's what their parents taught them. They seen their parents work a job and retire and live off a pension. Now the thing is, with the millenniums, we saw our parents maybe work a job and get laid off, or we saw a lot of that. So our allegiance to corporations has completely changed our mindset, where we feel like they'll let us go. We know that we may not have Social Security, we may not have pensions, and so our mindset around how we're going to navigate our careers looks different because of how we were raised. And so it's just a shift in how what we've seen in our society. There's a lot of mistrust, there's just different things that we experience. Plus, we have access to so much more now. The jobs that we have were not jobs that were even created when our parents were coming around. So nothing really looks the same for us. We can literally sit at our computers and post things and be millionaires.
Right.
Yeah.
Or whatever, or think we are, whatever, right? So it's like just the dynamics of our career and society has shifted the way we look at longevity and jobs and building relationships, which could be not always a good thing, but it's just the times we live in. And so I'm always mindful of that, especially raising kids that are in the alpha generation. I'm like, okay, well, what is that going to look like for them? Like, how are they going to navigate it? Are they going to see me as an entrepreneur and want to do that? Are they going to want to be career-driven people? And just kind of making sure I set them up with the character, like Dr. Pinkston said at the beginning, that's going to sustain them through whatever they choose in life. So
yeah, that's interesting. What you said was brilliant about the differences in the generations, because I'm in that 45 to, what is it, Gen X? I'm XYZ.
It's Gen X.
Yeah. So I'm in the Gen Xers, and I saw my, the live in a business and stay there, and the business was just as allegiant to you as you were to them. And then now you're right, it's completely, but there is no business allegiance and allegiance. I grew up in a time where we went outside at night. We were out till 10 o'clock at night, riding bikes miles away from home. I was 7, 8 years old, riding my bike 5 miles from home, and my mom didn't know where I was till 10 o'clock at night. We slept outside. We feared for nothing. And now my children, the way I raised them, I wouldn't even let them ride their bike out in the front yard without me out there.
Yeah.
Huge difference in that, in the way that we think now, and that safety feature and whatnot. And I think that has built a different system of thinking in how to approach stability from it is all about me now. If the company is not going to be there for me, then I am out for myself, and I'm going to do what's best for me. And so I see it. It's very plain. I look at my children, and then there's personality. So it's personality driven in a way too, because all my kids are completely different people. My oldest is me times 1,000, and she is going to do it herself, her way. She's already working on things, and she's mad at herself right now because she's not a billionaire and the most famous person. 3 yet. So that's her. And then I've got my middle one, who is a very calm, very quiet, very, no, she's not timid. I mean, when she needs to be on, she's on. But she's not sure really how she wants to do things and where she wants to go. And she's just comfortable where she is at the moment. And I'd see a lot of danger there. I'm like, girl, you have got to get up and start making some decisions about things and get going. She's like, no, I'm going to sit back and watch this for a little while, really decide. And so, okay, well, there's some nobility in that for sure. And then there's my son, who really has no clue what he wants to do except play video games. But at the same time, he's incredibly intelligent. And I know at some point when he finally turns it on, it's going to be rip roaring. It's going to be great, right? And they're just all three different. And it's like, where do look at where they came from, from me and what I do. And it's just, I think, are you built from your parents? Are you built from your generation? Are you built from the environment? Is it nature? Is it nurture?
Well, all that, I think all that. And the crazy thing is that it starts so young. Like, you get all of that ingrained in you before you're 10, and now it's just good and off of that. Like, your society, your raising, like all of that is ingrained so young, so you have to kind of figure out how you navigate that. But yeah, so interesting, really interesting.
It really is.
Yeah, it's funny that you guys like kind of talk about the difference in generation too, because me and my mom actually have a show here or on LV with Val Radio, where we talk about kind of the different generations. She's Gen X and I'm like Gen Z, millennial, however you want to look at it. But yeah, Day, whenever you said that, you kind of watched your generation watched your parents like get laid off or things like that, COVID happened, first of all, only 4 years ago, which it feels like it was so long ago, but COVID was 4 years ago. And that felt like the world was ending. Like, nobody knew where their next paycheck was coming from. Like, so many small businesses failed. And that happened right the year before I graduated college. So I'm going into my career with that in mind. And I think that's why a lot of us kind of have this like self-sustaining mindset, because it's like, I mean, we could have another pandemic and everything could be lost. And so that's made me really conscious, not only of like money and finances, but just stability in general, housing stability, stability in my career, stability just in life in general, and making sure that I have my ducks in a row. Because if another pandemic happens, like I'm preparing for another pandemic essentially, because that happened really when I was like stepping into like adulthood. So I think it is a product of, your environment. And when I was really young, then that's when like the housing crisis thing happened, where, all of that was happening. And then I did watch my stepfather. He's the type of person, he works a long time in one job. I've only seen that man have two different jobs. He has a few like side jobs, but I've only seen him have like two different places that he works for. And he's reaped a lot of benefits of that, he has a pension and whatever all that stuff is. I don't even know what like a tenure is, but he has it.
I don't think it exists anymore, honestly, except for in the university. So yeah.
Yeah. And then my mom, I've seen her kind of work different jobs. Not like every 2 years or anything like that. But, if she's unhappy or feels like she's undervalued, she'll leave a job. And then COVID happened and, then she had to find something else and then she was undervalued. So I think it is a product of what you see, but also the past 5 years in the world have kind of been traumatizing. And so I think that's where it can come across as selfish, but it's really about self-sustaining and just make like, I can only look out for me at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The trauma that people experienced with COVID, being in the medical field, being a physician, I've been able to get into people's heads about it and, and so I get to hear a lot of things that, you guys probably don't, about the fears of people and what they've experienced. Things have changed. People have changed. We are, we're meaner. It is, there is a lot of very, I don't know if selfish is the right word. Maybe you guys can help me be a little more eloquent about this, but there is a very self-protective mode. And I think that when your stability, when your finances, and I know I've been through a very, very difficult time where I lost, I was a millionaire and I lost everything had to start completely over. Many people do that. I'm not singing a sad song, but many people do that. But that happened to many people during COVID, and people came out on the other side extremely fearful and anxious about what could happen in the future, what the future could bring. There was a lot of joy that was stolen from people as well. I'll tell you, my daughter, it was her senior year of high school when the shutdown happened. And so she's like, I didn't get prom. I didn't get to walk the stage. I didn't get to do all these life things. My friends, I didn't get to see my friends for a year. And, a lot of children were held out of school at a very, very important developmental time while their parents were losing jobs and things. And so there's a lot of distrust. There's a lot of emotional instability. So that is going to shape a generation, and we're going to see, the fallout from that, and see how people's spirit comes out, and ability to cope with problems from the future on here based on that. It's going to be very, very interesting.
And I think society has kind of pushed this like self-sustaining idea as well, because I feel like it used to be, and a lot of other cultures still kind of live this way. It used to be, you had one big house with your grandma, your aunts, your uncles, whereas, nowadays they really kind of push that like nuclear family where it's like you, your spouse, and your children, and then that's it. And so, you're kind of taught to like, I'm just going to protect me and mine and not really think as much about the other people that may be involved too. Not that I'm like, excusing, some of the selfishness that is portrayed, but, I do think, since we're talking about society and generation, like how that can impact someone's like viewpoint of just how life is supposed to be structured.
Mm-hmm. There's a lack of community. I know my husband's family is from overseas, and there's a very different thought process about how you do things as a community, and you think about giving to the underserved. You think about how your decisions and what you're doing impacts, the people and the neighbors around you. You see somebody else. I remember when I was a kid and I lived in a very, very small farming town. And if Uncle somebody got sick and couldn't tend his crop, then the community came in and tended the crop and took care of it for them. And that's the thinking overseas. It's a very community oriented way of taking care of each other. And here we're very, very different from that. That is your problem. I've got my own. I am taking care of me and mine. And, and we do things for us. We don't do things thinking about the community and the culture around us. And I think that's a very, I think that in the end is going to get us into trouble. I think that's part of the reason why. And I make the joke with my patients these days because everybody's so stressed and exhausted. I'm like, when did the American dream turn into the American nightmare? And I think it is based, some of it is based on the fact that we have lost that sense of community, of caring for somebody else and what they're going through, and trying to assist and help and putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, and trying to help. It's like that is your problem. You find your own resources. You do your own thing. I've got enough on my plate right now. And we've singled ourselves out to really have to survive rather than live. And it's really, and I think that's where, coming back to our topic, where we have to look at things when we are making those decisions about walking away from something important, as Day said, that can change the culture, the people you're leaving behind. Nobody cares about that anymore. Yeah, that's your problem.
Yeah.
Problem. I'm going to go take care of me and myself, and whatever happens back here, that's your problem. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
That's a tough mindset. Yeah, tough culture.
Yeah. And it's kind of a double-edged sword too, because there's that fear of like, you're like, well, that's your problem, right? I could leave and you guys are going to figure it out. And there's that fear of like, you could also fire me and I have to figure my stuff out, So I think that again is that fear that's kind of instilled in us based off of what we've seen in the world.
That's right.
So, since we're talking about should you walk away, that's really a decision you have to make, and I do think people should do what's best for them. I do think we live in a world where you do have to put yourself first, but consider the domino effect that might have to the people around you and to yourself too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you guys have any final thoughts for today? Anything you guys want to add or feel like we didn't touch on enough?
Mm-hmm. Well, originally when we brought up the topic, I thought about someone who is in this role where they are navigating their career, and trying to, or even a relationship, because some people can look at it like that, and you're thinking about, should I leave? Should I stay? Um, I think that, like you guys said, it comes down into intuition, and are you going to be able to accept what comes next with this decision and all that comes with it? Are you prepared for that change? Are you prepared for that newness that'll come with it? And if you feel like this is better over here, then you go for it without regret, because you probably made the best decision for you. Don't carry that regret into it. Move forward with a positive perspective and make the best of the situation. So don't feel like you need to feel bad about anything, carry that guilt, but go with it in grace and ease and in a positive mental attitude.
Yeah, if you have done everything that you know to do, if you're in a bad situation, and if you are at a point where you personally have given it your all, you've done everything you can to try to, fix the situation and add to it and make a positive, situation out of it. And ultimately it is something that is not fixable, then, you do have to make that decision. I'll give people a tool. So when you are in a situation where you are not sure, what to do and what decision you should make, this is what counselors have people. This is a part of cognitive behavioral therapy that a counselor or a life coach would teach you to do. And that would be to sit down and make a list. Just get a piece of paper and well, this is the old fashioned way of doing it. Get a piece of paper and this is somebody I know. Hi, Susan. So thank you, Susan. I appreciate that. You sit down with a piece of paper and write out all the pros and cons, write out the good and positive reasons why you are in this relationship, write down the positive things about this person, what they bring to your life, or, the job, and just write all the positives, then sit down and write out all of the negatives, and then spread that out and take a look at it. And I think sometimes when you get it out of your mind and out of your soul and heart, and you put it out like that for something you can visualize, sometimes it becomes pretty darn clear which direction you should take. And that is a great tool for people. A lot of times we feel very anxious because it's inside. We're thinking about it, ruminating, and we can't think straight. There's just so many features about what we're trying to decide. And I think if you can do that, just put it down on paper, spread it out and look at it. Your positives list may be ginormous and then just a few negatives, but those negatives may be really big, or the opposite, just a few positives, but the negatives are just sometimes it'll help you in a visualization tool, to make a good decision. So I just thought I'd leave a tool for people to use to help decision making.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. That. And then Day, did you want to wrap up with anything?
Well, yeah, I just, kind of comment on it and making sure that people just go with it with grace. Don't feel guilty about you making your decisions and moving forward. So, yeah.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for this conversation. Like I said, I think, every time we have these conversations, it does feel like it was like meant for somebody. Mm-hmm. And I told y'all, I've been feeling like I need a change in life. I'm not sure. I've been feeling like I need a change. I'm not sure where, and so.
Val just crapped her pants right there. So
No.
Give us something else to do. We don't want it.
It's replaceable, right? I said that earlier,
right? No, but yeah, I think these conversations are always really important to have, and you never know who's struggling with something. And, I'm glad that we're here to provide a different perspective for for our audience. So thank you guys so much for joining me today for Should You Walk Away? VK Career Conversations.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Have a great week.